Hi everyone. In this month's podcast, I'm sharing from my conversation with Judy Parsons, the LinkedIn lady. We chatted about IP and the different things that affect us as creatives and business owners. So I hope you enjoy the chat.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this month's LinkedIn Lovein, where we're shining a light on the world's leading B2B social media platform, that is LinkedIn. But actually, we've got a slightly different LinkedIn Lovein today, because I'm being joined by the lovely Anna Bruin, who is an IP trainer, who's going to talk to us all about intellectual property and how you can protect your brand on LinkedIn, and of course your website as well. But obviously I like to focus on LinkedIn in these things. And there is a reason why Anna and I are chatting about this, because I met Anna recently in person at a networking event in Wakefield, up north where I'm based. And I found out that Anna is an IP trainer, and I got into a little bit of bother last year with LinkedIn about using the LinkedIn lady. And I was very lucky to get away with just a slap on the hand, as it turned out.
Yes.
But it's, yes, exactly. But it's a reminder of just how important it is to understand IP and also to know our own IP rights. So, Anna, I'm delighted that you're here to help us do just that.
Oh, it's lovely to be here, Judy. Thank you for inviting me.
So just before we start, I'd just like to tell people, if you're new to these LinkedIn Loveins and wondering what the heck they are short, bite-sized LinkedIn learnings over lunch. And every month I'm joined by a guest expert to share their expertise on subjects to help you support your LinkedIn activity and results. Now, I also want to make these LinkedIn Loveins as interactive as possible. So if you do have any questions, please put them in the comments box, and we'll look at those as we go throughout. That's enough of me, though. That's enough of me. Let's get started. Firstly, and come to you, Anna. I would really like to understand how you got involved with IP, because I know you were telling me that you've been on a journey. You've registered trademarks in the UK and in America. You've registered 100 designs and protected your content with copyright. Mm-hmm. So how did all that happen? How did you get involved in that? Because I know you're a designer, actually, originally.
Yes. Yeah, I'm still designing. I first learned about IP when I was working for a design consultancy, and the boss I was working for introduced me to it, and she asked me to start protecting the work that we were creating. Oh. So as I was doing that, I was just like, I could do this for my own work. That's when I started my journey protecting my own stuff. I was using copyright and registered designs. And then in 2018, I registered my first trademark. And 2000 and I think it was 1920, I ended up registering my American trademark, which nearly failed, but we rescued it. We've got that sorted as well now. So yeah, I've been on a journey, but never expected to end up training people about it. It just wasn't what I was expecting at all.
My goodness me, you've had some experiences there, haven't you? So I think it's probably important to understand what is IP, because I think I know what IP is, but do I know what IP is? Do you know what I mean? And why is it important that business owners like myself, why should we care about IP?
Yeah. Well, let's start off with a definition of what IP is. And this is from the World Intellectual Property Organization. So they have done a definition for us. So it's intellectual property refers to creations of the mind, such as inventions, literary and artistic works, designs and symbols, names and images used in commerce. IP is protected by law, for example, patents, copyright and trademarks, which enable people to earn recognition or financial benefit from what they invent or create. By striking the right balance between the interests of innovators and the wider public interest, the IP system aims to foster an environment in which creativity and innovation can flourish. So I think that's a really good way of understanding what IP is in an everyday business and creative realm.
Wow, it's quite long, isn't it? I was expecting something a little bit more succinct.
No. Well, my definition is intellectual property starts with ideas in the mind, but it has to come out into some kind of tangible form. You can't protect it while it's still in your head. So if you think about something that is man-made, then the likelihood is it could be protected by some kind of intellectual property. So if you're thinking about something that somebody else has created, then the likelihood is it might have some kind of intellectual property rights. So that's my rule of thumb. If I haven't created it myself, or even if I have, to think, actually, this is a way to think it actually has to have some, respect towards it for the person who created it, and some rights to protect it as well.
Which is, guess where I got into trouble, isn't it? Because I wasn't using the TM, and I was taking their brand, I guess, in vain LinkedIn when it came to LinkedIn. So why though? So I guess there's two elements here really when we think about why is IP important, because it's our own stuff that we're creating. So whatever uniquely we create, and then but also making sure we don't get into trouble with anyone else. Is the two kind of issues as to why we should care about it. So what should we be doing to make sure we don't fall foul of IP then?
Well, firstly, understanding what intellectual property is, because a lot of people I meet either don't know what it is, they look at me blankly as if to say, what on earth is that? Or they do know about it, but they know the wrong information, because there's a lot of information out there that people misunderstand. When I first started putting together my first course, which was a beginner's guide to intellectual property for designers and artists, I initially thought, how hard can it be to share with people what I know? But it didn't take me long to realize, oh my goodness, I have taken on a monster, because it's complicated. The law is complicated. It's difficult to understand. But I just dug my heels in and went, you're not going to beat me. I think the first port of call is actually to understand what intellectual property is and how it already affects you. I mean, we go down the street and we go into shops, we purchase from particular brands. That's all about intellectual property. Those are trademarks that people have registered to build their brands and to develop what they create. So that's just the tip of the iceberg, really, of the sort of things that we're affected by every day, but just probably don't realise.
Yeah, and the other thing as well, I did a little post about this last week, and somebody had said they got into trouble a couple of times for actually using Google images. And it's like knowing that not everything that's out there in what would seem the public domain is usable.
Absolutely. I mean, I was having a conversation with my mum and she got quite scared in the conversation, because I said to her, Mum, where do you pick up your images from that you use in what you're doing? She said, I'll just go into Google. I said, okay, you need to stop doing that, because just because it's publicly available doesn't mean you can publicly use it. I mean, they might like you a slap on the hand. They might give you a slap on the hand if you're using it for personal stuff. But if you're using it for business stuff, you're very, very likely to be in the realm of getting fined or sued. And that's really worth knowing where to go, what not to do. Just because you can find something on YouTube, you can find some music on Spotify, or you can get images on Google, does not mean you can just automatically use them. The rule of thumb is know where you've got it, know if you've got permission to use it, and know how to reference it as well. Because if you use something and you say it's for personal use, but you're using it for business use, you're breaching the terms and conditions, and you can get fined for that as well. So it's really being respectful and knowing that in the internet age, you can't just think, okay, it's fine. I'm not going to get found out. And also the law is not very it isn't very, it doesn't bend. If you don't, if you make mistakes, it doesn't give you allowances for that. It's just like the onus is on you to, as the owner or the person who's creating something, to make sure you know whether you've got the ability to use it or not, because they don't make allowances for ignorance.
No, you can't say, "Oh, I didn't know." Yes,
Yeah,
I definitely know.
You might be all right. They might slap you on the wrist, but there's no guarantee.
And it can be expensive, can't it? You were telling me many stories about people who have fallen foul of other people's IP, and actually, it's been quite horrific, some of the instances of it.
Well, I was talking to one of my photographer friends, Danny, and he'd had one of his friends contact him saying, I've been approached by one of these picture libraries, and I've got an email, I think it was an email fine, and they were fining her for £5,000 for not using the image properly. And he said to her, did you reference it properly? Did you? And she's like, no. He said, you may not be able to get out of this. I mean, £5,000 is a lot of money.
It's a lot of money for for solo business owners.
Absolutely.
It's something you don't want to find that you get at the end. That's a very big amount of money.
Yeah.
So it's all about, in terms of business owners, to avoid that sort of thing, it's really understanding, okay, what is IP? Where am I getting my content sources from?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Can I use them?
Yes.
And how do I reference them? So there's quite a bit of knowledge and understanding first, isn't it, to make sure you don't fall foul of those.
Yeah, I think that the first point is to understand that this is, IP is an everyday issue. And I think one of the things I'm finding is because AI is now speeding a lot of the process up, a lot of these companies are using AI and bots to find things really, really quickly. So, so what they're doing is they're searching the internet, and they're searching internet history, because it's not just today's stuff. They're going back in internet history, and they're going after people. And some of these companies are going quite aggressively after people, saying, have you got evidence that you've paid for this, or you've licensed it properly? And if they haven't, then people are getting fined. So it's quite a big industry that is growing.
Wow. And that is really interesting, because you could go back and browse in history. I mean, how far back could they go? I mean, I've been in business, since pretty much 2009. I mean, how far back can these companies go if I've not been doing what I
don't know what the definitive limit is, but I think, some people have been approached about stuff that's been out on the internet 10 years, and I think it could go back 15 or 20 years, but I don't know the exact figures. Yeah. So it could go back a long way.
And it's like, so I think this is, and I think for designers and for photographers, for working with people like me, getting your own content is always going to be the best thing, isn't it? Because nobody's going to come after me, for and anyway. And there's a lovely lady that I know, photographer Perrin Reed, who always talks about ditching the stock photography, and I think it's boring as well, isn't it? If you have stuff that you see the same picture that everybody uses, and I think it's really, really, really dull. Yeah. So you mentioned to me that there's at least 10 reasons why it's important for IP for business owners to understand, to know IP. So obviously not getting into trouble, not getting their own stuff copied. Is there any other significant things that we need to be aware of?
Looking at your own branding and being sure that you're not actually infringing other people's branding, because just because you're trading with something doesn't mean that you are not infringing on somebody else's. And I think that's a really important thing to know as a business owner, to know that you're not infringing on their brand names or their logos or anything that they're trading in, because it could end up meaning that you've got to rebrand. That's happened. We were talking about that, weren't we, Judy? There's a place not so far from where we live in Brighouse near Bradford. It's called, it was called the Ritz Ballroom, but what it was an events place where it had live dancing, live events, live music, live bands, that kind of thing happening. And in the year 2018, it'd been trading for 80 years. Wow. And they received an email from the Ritz hotel chain in London. And the Ritz hotel chain said to them, you've got to stop using the name Ritz, because it's infringing our intellectual property. So imagine you were that business that got the email. So they had a decision. They only had several days to make the decision. Firstly, they could challenge it in court, or secondly, they could change their name. And the challenge with going down the legal route is you've got no guarantee of winning, and also it can be very expensive. So they kind of looked at that and thought, actually, we're going to decide to change our name. But if you imagine where that goes, that you're looking at, you have to remove everything with the previous name on. that removes all hashtags, all history, everything that had that on. So to all intents and purposes, they're really looking like they're starting a new business again, or a new venue again. So they changed it to venue 73. But it was hard because they were really starting from scratch, starting from bottom up. And it wasn't easy. They were struggling to keep the business going. And then only a couple of years later, 2019, not only a year and a half later, COVID hit. And we know that it hit the entertainment industry. So it was the final nail in the coffin, and that venue is now closed. It's a very sad story, but it's just the reality. Even though they've been trading for 80 years, they've not put any IP protection in place. And this is what happened. Their business ended up folded.
I think that's really interesting, isn't it? Because just going back to it takes a lot to go in and change stuff. I'm going through a rebrand at the moment and just going, oh my gosh, it's here, it's there. It's you don't kind of like, it keeps popping up and I'm going, oh, I'll change that, because I've got everything online. But I think the other thing is about having your own IP protected, because had the Ritz, whatever, I mean, we can't, a smaller business go up against larger companies who probably have a bottomless pit of legal stuff they can afford. But, you mentioned that if they'd had their own IP in place. So that's sort of ringing a light bulb to me, and that's what, as business owners, we should be doing, is having our own IP in place to protect us against big companies who maybe want to come back at us.
Well, I think, quite often people look as they don't. Firstly, if people do understand what IP is, they kind of think it's a bit of an out there thing. It's a bit difficult to kind of quantify exactly how much it's worth. It's a bit difficult to kind of quantify its value, that kind of thing. But when you put it into your whole strategy of business, it's a sort of thing like insurance. You get insurance, you don't want to pay for it. You think, really, am I paying all this money each year for this insurance? But it really becomes important if something goes wrong. And, if you see your house flooded or something, you want to make sure you've got insurance in place because you don't want to have kind of like, oh, bummer, I wish I'd paid for that. And you haven't. And IP is a bit like that. So it's a sort of thing that you don't really want to pay for. But if something goes wrong, you're really, really glad you did. Because it's the sort of thing that can give your business longevity. And not only that, there's so many other things that are related to it. So, if you're looking at building and growing, even licensing, franchising, if you're wanting to get investments, one of the first things they'll ask you is, have you protected your IP? Because that's the sort of thing that they will be looking at to safeguard what you've created. If they're going to be pouring money into it, they want to know that money has got some safeguards behind it.
Yeah. All absolutely valid points, isn't it? It's so interesting. Sarah here Sarah runs a care company, Complete Care in Wakefield. And so they, again, going back to your point, if it's your own content and not borrowing stuff from Google. Because I who can afford a £5,000 fine? Absolutely. I know I was really interested because you mentioned about AI and stuff from the perspective of people trying to find you, but actually, is there all is the whole AI thing from creating images?
Sarah, you have opened up a can of worms.
Oh right, okay, let's hide that then.
So I'll tell you where things stand at the minute. The law hasn't caught up with what's out there. And they're playing catch up in the courts about what's happening. But it's a legal minefield. It really is. And they're deciding how they're going to be looking at IP and AI created stuff in the US and the UK, and they may not agree on the same things. There's a lot of cases that are happening in the courts at the moment where the AI companies have managed to access stuff that should be protected. It should be behind firewalls. It should be not publicly accessible. But they have found that stuff. They have found that content. It's gone into their learning models, and it's then being regurgitated back out again for people to use. And a lot of these people that have seen, oh, they're using my stuff, are going to court over it. So it's like the AI companies have started this wheel in motion that they haven't really thought about the implications legally. And I know there was a consultation in the UK about AI. It finished, was it last week, I think? So the government are looking at that as well as to where they stand with, looking at the law and perhaps even changing the law. I mean, all those kind of things is all in their process at the moment, and it's from a creator's point of view, from your own creation point of view, you want to be able to make sure that what you've created is protected. But the AI is kind of, throwing that all into disarray at the moment, and it's not exactly decided what's going to happen with it, but it is a huge issue. And who owns it? Yeah, that's all being decided as well. It's a big topic.
Big topic, more than we can discuss in our little today, etc. So what I wanted to go on to next, Anna, if I may, is just some sort of practical stuff. So there are different types of IP, isn't there? So as a business owner, I'm talking at sort of small businesses, solo business owners, what types of IP should we be using in our business?
Okay, well, let's just start at the basics, and I'm going to give you details of the four most popular, the four most common types of IP. There's more than that, but these are the ones that you probably are most likely to be using at this stage. So first one is copyright, and that protects original works like literature, music, and art. And this gives creators exclusive rights to reproduce and distribute their work in tangible form. So one of the advantages is in the UK, it's an automatic right upon creation. So get it out of your head into some kind of tangible form, and the original work can then be protected by a level of copyright. So you don't need to fill out any forms or fees. That's one of the advantages that you can take advantage of. So trademarks, thinking of branding, thinking of Apple, think of Dyson, think of Marmite, all these different companies have trademark. LinkedIn, of course. So these protect names, logos, and slogans, and they identify the goods and the services from others. So do you go to Costa Coffee or do you go to Starbucks? They're both protected by trademarks, and that's part of the branding of where you go. So we're surrounded by those every day. So number 3 is patents. So these protect inventions. They need to be new and useful and non-obvious. So, the invention can be then reproduced. And some examples of inventions are Bluetooth or drones, that kind of thing. So patents are looking after inventions.
Yeah. It's quite interesting on Dragon's Den, isn't it? Because that's one of the things they always ask people who go on, isn't it? Especially if they're coming up with some kind of new thing. Yeah. Have you got the IP for this? Yeah. Is it patented? Yeah.
And one of the things about a patent or a patent, depending on how you pronounce it, one of the things is that a lot of people don't realise that there are limitations on what you can protect if it's gone public. If you've actually made the information public in one way, shape, or form, you could end up finding that you can't protect it. So there's really key things about, if you have got an invention, keep it under wraps. Don't start spreading it. Don't share it with your friends down the pub. Don't, all these kind of stuff can end up, if you then go to a patent lawyer and say to them, can I protect this? And they'll ask you those questions. And if you say yes to any of those, they'll say, I'm sorry, but you've nullified the ability to protect it now. So
anybody thinking of going, sorry, Anna, to interrupt you then. No, sorry, I was just going to say, anyone thinking of going on Dragon's Den with their new invention, make sure you've got your IP first.
Definitely. And it's not just there. You can pop the details into the internet, and that could nullify it as well. So it's really important that you know what you can and can't do with the IP that you're creating, and make sure that you protect it in the way that it needs to be protected, and don't shoot yourself in the foot.
Yeah. And again, if you don't know and understand, you really have to be on your game, don't you, to understand the whole IP umbrella kind of thing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Your thing is all
It
I can
is, yeah.
describe it as.
It's a huge subject, huge subject.
Huge subject. It is. I'm just kind of realising that.
Yeah.
What I wanted to go back to was
Judy, we've got one more.
Have we? Sorry, can't count.
We've done 3. So let's do the last one. This one is trade secrets. So this protects confidential business information. So it can be a formula, it can be processes. For example, Coca-Cola's recipe. It's debatable whether it's still secret, but that would be covered by a trade secret. So those are the 4 types that are the most common types of IP that people can use.
Got it. So sorry for interrupting on that. But one, in terms of, protecting our content or our brand on LinkedIn and things like that, the copyright is actually one of the easiest ones, isn't it, to do?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can just put copyright, can't you? You don't have to. So I could do this, do it as an article, and then put copyright on.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing I suggest to people, because it's a really simple thing you can do right now. You can put your name or your business name, put the year, and then put all rights reserved beside it with a copyright symbol. And it just gives people some idea that you know about your intellectual property. It doesn't give you any more protection whether you put it on or not, but it just gives people a bit more idea about that. And I also have something on my website and on the bottom of my emails, which, Judy, you could put this in the comments once we're done. It says, this is the phrase: all copyright, design rights, and intellectual property rights existing in our designs and products and in the images, text, and design of our website and marketing material are and will remain the property of Amanya Design, which is my business. We will treat any infringement of these rights seriously. And I've also added at the end, Amanya is a UK and USA registered trademark. Yeah. So it's just giving people some idea when they see my stuff that actually these are the sort of things that I'm aware of, and I would pursue these things if people were going to go after my stuff to copy them.
Yeah. So for individuals like me who don't have registered trademark, you could take the first bit, and you said, we'll put it in the comments after this so people can grab that, and you put it at the bottom of your website. So and email as well, you put it in, did you say?
Yeah, I just put it in my email footer. Yeah, email footer and in my website. And sometimes I put it on the bottom of other things as well, but generally those 2 things. And I use the short phrase just in other stuff that I do. Yeah.
Lovely. So I'll definitely pop that into the comments, because you also use a little sign, the C, the circle.
The C
with the date. Yeah, with the date, and then all rights reserved. So so that is something that we should all make sure we're doing on our websites. Probably not so much on LinkedIn, but I suppose you could if you wanted to, at the bottom of your about section.
It's a good start. Yeah.
It's a good start, isn't it? Is there anything else? What else should any other practical tips that we can be doing straight after this LinkedIn Lovein to protect our IP?
I think a good thing to start with is actually make a list of what you own, whether it's your designs, whether it's your your business strategies, the sort of things that you do. Sit down and make a list of all that makes you different to your competitors or whatever, and then you can kind of see it in black and white what the sort of things are that you would need to look at protecting and how you would protect them. So like an inventory, really. That's a really good thing to do, and then to have some idea about what you're working with.
That's really interesting, isn't it? Because I have a strapline. So get found, get known, get leads from LinkedIn, but I guess I can't say anything. So could I have get found, get known, get leads trademarked or copyrighted or something?
Well, it will automatically be copyrighted. Automatically be copyrighted for the fact that you've created it. You could definitely look into whether you could trademark it. It'd be worth investigating that. Yeah.
Oh well, well, I mean, that's a good point to say. For me to find that out, to go on your course that you've got running in April to understand what I can copyright, etc.
Yeah.
We've got a quick question here from Becky about how do you protect IP of ideas presented in a pitch for a new business. So that's quite interesting, because I'm
Yeah.
assuming I'm assuming this is going back, Becky, to what Anna was saying earlier, that once it's out there,
Yeah. Becky,
can it be IP?
I had this similar scenario when I was doing a workshop. And I said what I would do now, which is my opinion. This is my opinion of what I would do. If I was pitching for work with a company, say I was doing a design project, because I know people that have gone for interviews for jobs and designs, and the companies have nicked their ideas that they presented at the interview.
Oh, yeah.
At the interview. So I know that's happened. So probably what I would do now is I would politely say, as part of the pitch, all this content is my intellectual property and remains my ownership. If you were looking to use it, we would have to sort of discuss that further. But this is my intellectual property and it cannot be used without my permission. I'd probably do something like that and just preempt it and sort of say to them, I understand my IP, I understand this is my creation. And then I would just politely put that in there so they know, let's steer clear of her because she understands about those rights. And I think, from their perspective, they're looking at you're knowledgeable and you know what you're talking about, but just keep it polite. And I think that's probably how I'd approach it.
And I think that's a really good example of understanding your own IP rights, isn't it? Because, people do put pictures in, a number of companies into to one potential client, and later discover that their ideas have also been used. And that is really bad thing of doing, isn't it? And stuff. But so we, believe it or not, come up to our half an hour. And can you believe it, Anna? We could carry on talking forever. But I just wanted to mention, I know you're running a live workshop on the 8th of April, a beginner's guide to IP for entrepreneurs and business owners. So we'll put the link in if anybody's interested in checking that out. Or please do go and connect with Anna on LinkedIn.
Yeah, do. And I will be running the workshop for designers and artists as well. I'm just sorting out the final date on that one. So yeah.
Well, thank you again, Anna, for joining us to talk about IP and to help hopefully give us a bit more information and steer us in the right direction.
I hope so.
Thank you very much indeed.
You're very welcome, Judy.
Bye for now.
Bye.